A vague disclaimer is no one's friend. This podcast will look at episodes in relation to Buffy and Angel as a whole, and therefore contains spoilers for the entirety of both series. If you haven't seen all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel the series, go and watch them before you listen to this. Remember, you've been warned.
The hardest thing in this world is to live in it.
That's why there's us, champions. We live as though the world were as it should be, to show it what it can be.
The Earth is definitely doomed.
It's Tuesday, so it must be time to return to the Hellmouth. We're going through the Buffyverse episode by episode and a look back at Joss Whedon's iconic shows. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
Hey, it's Andie.
This is David.
It's Jan.
This week we're talking about Dead Man's Party, which is episode 2 of season 3. It was written by Marty Noxon and directed by James Whitmore Jr. and originally aired October 6th, 1998. So this is the first episode really back into the saddle of all things Buffy, because Anne is kind of like, there's two very separate storylines going on of the Scoobies trying to deal with that Buffy and Buffy trying to get back into herself, but now everybody's back together and we're trying to get used to that. So the first question I have right out the gate is, what type of gallery does Joyce work for?
No idea.
Well, it's an art gallery, and theoretically this is art. But yeah, I was kind of wondering. My question was, if they just got a shipment in from a dealer, isn't that stuff they're supposed to be selling?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was my actual question.
I mean, Joyce could have just been like, ooh, I'm going to order this one too at my discount and buy it for myself. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
It just seems like Art Gallery of the Damned, though.
It's Sunnydale.
It's not that aspect that really bothers me. It is what David said. It's like the way Joyce phrases it, it does sound like this is something that they were going to be selling, but she's decided to put it up in the house for a bit. But it's like, that doesn't really make any sense because that's not how art galleries work.
Yeah.
No, unless she purchased it herself. Like she saw it and, it's all for sale. You know, I like this one. I'm going to buy it.
I mean, I've never quite been sure. Like, does Joyce work for the gallery, or is it
or does she
her
own it?
gallery?
I think she owns the gallery.
I've never been sure about that.
I haven't either, but I think the way she talks about it and the fact that there are crates in her house that she unpacks sometimes leads me to believe she owns the gallery, right? Because there's that scene, and I can't remember which episode, where she's got all those boxes in the kitchen and she can't get them open, and Buffy pries them open with Slayer strength.
I think it's the witch that happens.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it is the witch, which always led me to believe that, like, why would packages be delivered to your home if you didn't own the gallery?
Right.
Yeah.
Which would make it slightly more sensible that she could take a piece if she wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that she had to buy the pieces outright and then sell them in the gallery, but still, it's very strange.
Quite, I mean, right, and it depends on a gallery versus a museum where they have exhibits that come in of this Nigerian mask stuff versus an art show where artists put their stuff up and there's a it's confusing.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like, this beginning scene, I mean, there's going to be a lot of moments where we say that Joyce is terrible, but I actually kind of like her in this opening scene where she's trying really hard to accept Buffy's life, but it's so fucking awkward.
Yeah.
It's actually very endearing because you can see she really wants her to stay. She's like sort of overcompensating at this point, but she cares, and she's trying to show Buffy that she cares. So, yeah.
I mean, the entire theme of this episode is lack of communication. It's communication breakdown and not being honest, and so there's that.
I mean, she is trying in this scene, although she's clearly still in denial about what's actually going on. Because I mean, she goes, you're talking about getting back to normal, and when Buffy's going, she goes, "Have a good time slaying,"
will you be slaying?
She is very clearly not taking on what's really going on yet.
Yeah,
I do. The vampires for me.
Yeah. And that comes out even more in a later scene.
Oh, yeah.
But Buffy goes out, and she meets up with the gang, and the biggest thing I have to mention is it's all fun and games until somebody loses an eye.
That is in my notes. Unintentional foreshadowing.
Yes.
Yeah, that just like lit up in neon while I was watching.
Mhm.
Beep, beep, beep. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is Cordy is dressed like Wish First Buffy.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
She looks great, but she is dressed like Wish First Buffy.
Yeah. The gang is actually pretty well set up for slaying, considering they don't have the Slayer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why it's taken so long, if they've been slaying all summer, to get to this point, because they didn't have, walkie-talkies or these big crosses in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually seem like everything that they're doing makes a lot of sense. They've got the big crosses, they've got the walkie-talkies to stay in contact. It's like, you should have been doing this all fucking summer.
Yeah. I should note, though, that the big honking cross that Xander's wearing doesn't seem to actually do anything.
No, it really doesn't.
The vampire attacks him anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe he was Jewish.
Maybe it's a Jewish vampire. I mean, that's never...
the vampire.
Well, as the old joke goes, Welt gar nicht helfen, which means nothing's going to work. That's what happens when a Jewish vampire attacks you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about atheist vampires? Do they just fuck that cross, whatever?
I don't think it's ever addressed in Buffy or Angel, but I mean, there are certainly vampire stories where that is significant. I mean, there was a Marvel comic called Greenberg the Vampire at one point, who was a Jewish vampire, and that was a relevant plot point.
Yeah, you would think that Muslim or Hindu vampires would be the same thing, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know in X-Men comics, and this probably goes for all of the main Marvel comics, that it wasn't the faith of the vampire, it was the faith of the wielder that mattered.
That makes sense.
The cross didn't work for Wolverine because he didn't believe in anything, but the Star of David worked for Kitty because she believed
right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so I would, as an agnostic, I just hold up something meaningful to me. I'm like, here's a leaf. It's a piece of nature. It protects me from you because I believe in something.
Carry a copy of the Principia Mathematica around with you.
Or a picture of Princess Leia. This is
go.
the thing I believe in. You cannot touch me. There we go.
I believe in the Force, and the Force believes in me. So
Xander looks pretty hot in this scene with the turned up collar and everything. It's like Nikki doesn't usually do a lot for me, but he looks good.
You mean Nighthawk?
Nighthawk, yes. So, and Cordelia's "Hey Buffy" never fails to make me laugh.
Oh yeah, Cordelia also is super beautiful in this episode.
She does.
Her hair is Season 3 Cordy is just wow.
This is all you people think about is sex, isn't it?
Yeah.
that's right. I mean, us women, we're just the worst.
Well, I actually think that season 3 is, for me, probably peak in terms of fashion.
Yeah.
I love the outfits in season 3.
I really like season 4 too. I enjoy season 4.
Yeah, as I said last week, I mean, just Sarah Michelle Gellar's hair and the chunky highlights and stuff, which is so 90s. I keep noticing it, and she just looks so beautiful, and I just love the.
No, we're going to talk about that pink dress later because I have things to say. But yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the gang ends up going over to Giles's place, and that
Oh my God.
that
Tony's-
quiet moment between them, which is only broken up by Xander just
Yes.
running his fucking mouth.
Once again,
It's just
shut
so
up, Xander.
sweet. Yeah, it's such a sweet moment, and Buffy's just tiny smile when she sees Giles. I love it.
And when Giles goes off to get the tea and he almost loses it, I got all verklempt because I was just oh my God, what a beautiful moment, and a beautiful Tony moment too.
I know. It's
Once again, Tony knocks it out of the park. I mean, we will see that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. He's so subtle in this episode, and unlike everybody else, he's not trying to miscommunicate with Buffy. He's trying to give her breathing space and time.
He's
so I don't
one of the
have
two
anything
people.
negative to say about. When do I ever have something negative to say about Giles?
Yeah, it's just to me the fact, and he doesn't say anything. It's just the physicality, and also the fact that you just know what's going on there without him having to say or do much. It just it's beautiful. Yeah. So.
And I mean, this scene is really nice because they're trying to make the gang seem like they're just falling into their normal thing, but there is something off about everything that they're saying. It feels hollow.
Yeah.
Though I do like the Belgium conversation, but I think Belgium is just funny.
I was going to say, Belgium is always a good punchline, just ask Stephen Moffat, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they really just hand wave away that wanted for murder thing. Like, just
Oh,
like,
God,
so
yes.
you're not wanted for murder
Well,
anymore.
I'm sure they all. Again, we said in the coming episodes that like all the police are going to need is Willow and Xander and Giles' testimony that Buffy was not even in the room when Kendra died.
Well, yeah, I'm just surprised that, like, maybe Joyce didn't mention it. But whatever.
True, right? Yeah. Yeah, well.
Oh, honey, by the way.
Yeah. And we get Snyder being Snyder.
Oh, it's so great.
Okay, my moment of Armin Shimmerman love. But can I say something? And this is like something I noticed immediately. Where in the past, where Snyder was just like evil because he was just like a nasty little piece of work. Here, and I mean, granted, it's knowing. It seems like there's more evil. There's like a different intent with his words and stuff. He just comes off more as like suddenly like a super, a villain as compared to just being an asshole in the past.
Oh, he's vile in this scene.
That's what I'm saying. It's suddenly amped up because you know what's going on. I mean, we know now. Back then we didn't, but there's just like there's a subtle difference to me in like the way he's playing the character.
I think it's because he knows or thinks at this point he has absolute power. So he's not on the back foot. Because sometimes Snyder kind of does his little thing, but is also a little on the back foot about things. And this time he's just like, nope, she's not coming back. That's not going to happen.
Well, this is the first scene where we have mentioned this season of the mayor.
The mayor.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Which, of course,
like,
will become a major thing very quickly. But please tell me that in the real world, all this talk about tingling sensations would be grounds for a lawsuit.
I know, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was gross, but it was wonderfully gross because it's Armin Shimmerman and Snyder. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, there's just something like there's the nuance to me of his performance overall. But yeah, we don't need to know about like Snyder's tingly parts.
But it's hilarious.
Oh, it is. He's always like knocking it out of the park.
Well, again, Shimmerman's wonderful, but he's wonderful at being awful here. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
I like Principal Snyder is one of my very favorite minor characters on Buffy because he's just.
I
mean, it's not like the evil, and you want to get to know the evil and what's behind it. He's like the banality of evil, first of all, but he's also like he's just so fun, and he sucks so hard, but he's so good at sucking so hard. Oh, that sounded dirty. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And it's also funny as hell in his vileness. So
he's great.
Evil comic relief. The comic relief of evil.
Yeah. One thing I noticed about, and sorry, I'm going to be talking about fashion again, but Buffy in that purple and pink outfit. It was during this episode that they filmed, or that they shot promo.
That outfit was in all the promos.
It was in all the promo. I remember for years I had like a full movie-sized poster of the gang in front of Sunnydale High, and Buffy was right in the center wearing that.
I had the same poster.
So Buffy goes to meet Willow. This is actually an incredibly notable scene. This is the first time we see Maple Court, which is the main drag in Sunnydale, and the first appearance of the espresso pump along with it. This will be like an iconic kind of location in Sunnydale for the rest of the show.
I mean, it's also tipping us off that we have a bigger budget. Because there's a whole other set going on there,
Yeah, I was going to say, this is our first like major exterior standing set. So...
Yeah, because, I mean, they did set this up, like, if I remember correctly, the production offices were inside all of the buildings.
Yeah, I think so.
This set gets reused on it's another television show that was on right after, like, right as Buffy wasn't canceled but ended. And I can't remember what it's called, but there was a Buffy actor on it, and so they said it was really weird being on the, like, they just reused this set. They had him reuse this set. Maybe it was Nathan Fillion. I can't remember. It was a very short-lived show with Alicia Silverstone. I don't know.
That
Mismatch or whatever.
Mismatch?
Yeah.
Charisma.
I think that was Nathan
Maybe
Fillion.
it was Charisma or Nathan Fillion, one of them. So they do reuse the set, and I immediately went, that's Sunnydale. So anyway, I like the set. It's a good set.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just something that crossed my mind. I mean, Snyder was going on about, hot dog on a stick and stuff, and we've been talking last week about how come Buffy can't get, like, she's already been a waitress. Why couldn't she work at the espresso pump? I mean, why did she have to go to Double Meat Palace? But anyway, just these things that come to mind as you're watching. Like, It seems like a nicer place, right?
But, so yeah, Buffy goes to the espresso pump, but Willow ends up not showing up, and she goes back home, and we get the first appearance of Pat.
I love Pat.
It's Pat.
Okay, back in the day, people thought Pat was totally into Joyce.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Pat just comes off to me as one of those, like, well-meaning but shit-stirring white ladies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say the costuming here is, like, really kind of brilliant. Because, like, she's got the mom clothes on, right? The little collared shirt and the, like, you know, kind of, you know. But she's also got, and I'm using quote fingers, ethnic necklaces on.
Yeah.
Which is totally signaling just subtly through costuming who Pat is. And Nancy Lenahan, it's Nancy Lenahan, right? Is that who it is? Yeah, Nancy Lenahan. We talk about that guy actors all the time. Oh, it's that guy.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't talk about the that guy or the that lady actors. And she's on everything.
She is.
And
she does turn up a lot.
Always really good. And again, I think those kind of actresses don't get enough credit for really enhancing, like, what's going on, the scene, the sort of just bringing their A game quietly under the radar, because they're not stunning, glamorous actors, you know, but they're quietly there. So I love Pat. I mean, Pat's super annoying, but I love the character. She's so great.
They do set up exactly who Pat is. Yes. She's one of these ladies who has, like, every single night she has her little clubs, and you know she goes to a Rampanana night and they're cooking, but mostly they're just shit-talking other people who are not there.
Right. Yeah, and she's got the book club, and she's probably got, like, a Tupperware party or, you know, one of these home...
That jewelry was probably bought from somebody who was selling it out of a suitcase.
Or
like, you know, let's have our little
a jewelry making club.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
it costuming there, it was just like spot on with like, oh, I recognize what kind of person you are based on your like mom outfit, even though I don't think Pat has kids. They don't mention it, but why would she be around Joyce so much doing all this stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, I get the feeling she's like one of those single ladies, like divorced or just never married. You know, I don't want to use the word spinster because that's not a nice word. But
divorced or never married and too into Joyce? What could that mean?
Right. She's a cat lady. Yeah, she know who she is immediately. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is a type.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get Buffy going in and Joyce telling her that she's invited the Scoobies over for dinner. And I love the line, Willow and everyone aren't company plate people, they're normal plate people.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good description of who the Scoobies really are. Because, I mean, there are people where it's like, you will put out your fancy stuff for them.
Yeah.
And then you like your friends who are just like, whatever, like, I don't care that you're here.
Like, it's just my mother would never put out the good plates for my friends unless it was like prom and we were making dinner, but we didn't have good plates. We just had plates. Like, we didn't have good. We didn't do china.
Yeah, in our house we have very good plates, and those actually didn't come out except for like the holidays, like if we were doing Passover dinner. I mean, and otherwise, even like when the family came over, they got the everyday plates. It was just the fancy schmancy when it was like Passover dinner. And I mean, considering these, I mean, Joyce should know. I mean, considering it's like Willow and Xander who've been like lying around the house, you know, eating potato chips in Buffy's bed. You would think that she would know they're the normal plates because they're basically
she's overcompensating though at this point. She's overcompensating.
I'm actually going to take this opportunity to defend Joyce because I'm not going to do a lot of that in this episode. Okay. And I'm just like, my feeling, I think what I this is very much Buffy and Joyce coming from two different directions. But I think what Joyce is doing is like, it's an occasion. So I want to use the nice plates. It's not about these are fancy people. It's a thing.
Yeah, I think everybody in this situation is trying to overcompensate for the situation. They want to avoid actually talking about what's going on. So Joyce wants to make a fancy dinner, and then the kids are like, well, no, let's make it, you know, a party. I do want to know how the heck that photo of Buffy and Xander and Willow ended up in the basement.
I have that same note. It's like, Joyce, did you just strip all the stuff of your child and her friends out of
I was wondering
your
about
house?
that.
I mean...
Maybe the cat brought it down there before it got killed?
Right? I'm just like, why would you all of a sudden take that away?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that be in Buffy's room? And she didn't clear Buffy's room. And I mean, I don't think they were talking on the phone every day, but was there any communication between Joyce and the gang? You know what I mean? A check-in or
It's implied that there is.
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah, it was super random.
It was. I mean, it was so Buffy could stare at it longingly, but
Yeah.
Yeah, to have an emotional beat, but it...
Yeah, and then dead cat falls on her, and they go out to dig the grave. I do have to say, God damn it, as somebody who has dug a lot of graves for cats, that grave was ridiculously shallow, and if that cat didn't zombify, it would have been dug up by prey in, like, a moment anyways.
Also, there's something weird. When they threw the cat in there, it was wrapped in plastic, and then, like, all of a sudden it's not, it's perfectly fine. It just seemed like you don't see the bag or anything.
It's the Laura Palmer of cats.
Itself out. I don't know. It's also kind of undignified. It just like throw out the trash, you know. Poor cat.
Okay. Also, not anything about the cat and the burying, but that's a different backyard than we'll see later. That is the first time we see the Summers backyard. I mean, and that's away to the like left of the house, to one side of the house. It's not.
I actually didn't realize that it was supposed to be the backyard. I thought they were burying it in the front yard.
Summers.
Yeah, it looks like.
You can see the Summers house like next to it, but it's, you know, it's an outdoor location instead of a built backyard like you're going to see in later seasons, in season 6 and season 7.
Maybe the Summers family are jerks and they're burying it in someone else's yard?
That's what I was just thinking.
Or the empty lot. Like, no, there's not an empty lot next to it. It felt like there was an empty lot next to the house, and we know, looking at the geography forward to the house, there's not an empty lot next to the house. It was just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get Joyce. Again, she's really trying when she's talking to Buffy about, you know, maybe we could tell the principal and the police, you know, they would want a superhero working for them. She's trying to apply mundane logic to this fantastic world. And I feel it's like, again, I'm not going to be defending Joyce a lot more in this episode. She's pretty terrible for the rest of it, but in this one scene she's just trying to wrap her head around it, but she still hasn't. She's accepted what Buffy is, but she hasn't quite accepted the world that Buffy is in,
you know, especially with the whole her blaming Giles and they're checking in and they're very stilted in the last episode. I suspect Joyce has never been sat down or told what this all involves and how it the logistics of Buffy patrolling and then homework, you know, like there's just not a lot of, you know, and so like I get her trying to, same like you said, Emcee. I get her trying to sort of apply real world principles to a fantastical situation, because I think when weird or strange or illogical things happen to all of us, that's, you know, you try to explain it, you know, or you try to use the skills and the tools and the information that you have from your past to apply it to a new situation. That doesn't always work. But so, yeah, I don't think Joyce is being unreasonable. We know it's a dumb thing for her to say, but she doesn't know it's a dumb thing for her to say.
Yeah.
Right. It also feels to me like she's trying to like wrap it up in nice paper and put a bow on it, even if it's for her own psyche, because she's trying to say, oh, you're a superhero. Like, because we said she doesn't really know what anything entails. So she's trying to put a positive spin on it because that will make her feel better about what Buffy does and how she does it.
And their disagreement, let's call it at this point, gets interrupted quite quickly by Zombie Cat.
River was not a fan. River was not a fan. She was like, I'm way better than that cat. Right, Ben?
Well, yeah. But yeah, Zombie Cat and Giles comes over and pulls the cat out, and he gets his little view of the mask. And then tells Buffy that she's not allowed on school property. Which isn't surprising, considering she's been expelled.
Yeah.
You
can tell that Giles is not fully recovered from the whole Buffy being away thing. His hair is out of place.
I know, it's slightly mussy.
It's must. And it's like, oh my god, is he okay?
Andie's smirk right now.
I was trying not to say it on the podcast. I was trying to like not do the thing that I do, but apparently.
Oh, I will call you out on things.
I didn't mention in the scene prior Giles' rolled up sleeve showing his forearms, huh? I had restraint, but if you're going to call me out on it, I'm just going to talk about it. Giles. Okay. Of the obligatory David Boreanaz is in the opening credits, we have to have him in a scene.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, we have Buffy's dream sequence, which actually in this scene, like, I know they haven't actually changed where they shoot Sunnydale High. It's the exact same
Torrance.
place. I can't
It's
remember
Torrance
what
High
school it
School.
is. Torrance, yeah. Torrance High School, right. But it looks so much better now. It looks so much bigger. And I think it's just because of the change in the film stock and just, like, the better direction and the more money. It looks so much better.
I mean, and like, obviously, Torrance High School, we talked about this before, you can see that in, like, so many shows. I mean, it's 90210. It's the same high school as Beverly Hills 90210.
Right.
And She's All That. No, the one with the...
She's all that because Sarah Michelle Gellar has a cameo in it. Cameo in that.
So yeah, I mean, David Boreanaz, gonna say, looks hot in that coat. Looked really good. But yeah, it was like, it really felt like, okay, David's in the credits. We have to have some kind of obligatory scene where he's in it.
Yeah, I think that's why I almost skipped over that, because, like, if we don't find anything else from this other than, like...
We also have another scene with Joyce and Buffy in the kitchen where she talks about the consequences and more about sending her to the...
Oh, her bad choices.
Joyce does talk about you made bad decisions and there are consequences. Again, as an audience, we know that those decisions... Well, first of all, none of those decisions were decisions. They were things that happened.
No.
Except for the running away, but we'll get into that when they get in their big fight. But I do like... I'm really conflicted because Joyce actually does say some things that parents should say when they're... Buffy's being a teenager, for sure. In her reactions. We know there's a lot more behind it, but when Joyce actually says, you made bad decisions, now there's consequences to your actions, and then she backs off and isn't as... Again, Joyce is a terrible parent. She's way better after this episode. We get it all cleared up. But the way she says it is very... Because it is a parent's job to remind your kids that not everything is going to be what they want all the time, and there are consequences to actions. And Joyce doesn't know how Angel died or even much about why Buffy left. Right? She just knows that this weird blonde man shows up, she tells her daughter to leave, and her daughter never comes back. I don't think she's
right. Well,
aware.
Buffy left because Joyce said, if you go out that door, don't come back.
But, like, I don't know if...
I'm sorry. Joyce is very much complicit in why Buffy left.
For sure. And I also don't think that Joyce knows the whole story of what... I mean, most of them don't know what happened. But at least Giles and Willow and Xander know that Buffy had to go into this, like, fight of her life. So, I don't know. I'm super conflicted. Anyway, now we get the scene with the Kitty and Oz.
Okay, yes. So the Scoobies end up meeting up in the library to try to research why this cat has come back. And they get distracted so fucking easily.
The scene is so
this has come up enough times.
Funny, though.
I want to call this out. Why bother doing research if you're just going to turn pages without looking at them?
They're teenagers. Some of this is they're teenagers.
No, but Giles does it. Giles does it this time. He is not a teenager. But teenagers, who invites a band to a party without checking with the host?
Hootenanny.
It's whatever it is.
Okay, well, I think...
Kids today.
Part of this has to do with the whole miscommunication things. The gang does not want to talk about what's going on with Buffy. As Xander says, did you meet any nice pimps on your travels? And all I have to say is porn stars.
Porn star Sam.
Yes.
But yeah, they don't want to talk about what happened with Buffy or what they've gone through. So they're trying to, like, throw the entirety of the Sunnydale High senior class in between
Right, so they
them.
don't have to have an intimate gathering with Bree where they actually might have to talk about their issues.
I blame most of it on Willow and Xander more than I do on Cordelia.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Oz.
no. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can we talk about the gathering versus the shindig versus the hootenanny?
Hootenanny.
Has
Hootenanny.
anybody ever used that to describe their parties? Anyone? Yes. I'm like, okay, what?
Of course
right.
I have.
Chock full of hoot, just a little bit of nanny.
Little bit of Annie.
Greatest. I'll give Marty props for that line. That line is fabulous. And Seth's delivery is just amazing.
Again, this is starting to establish Oz as an actual character outside of being somebody who is interested in Willow.
Mm-hmm.
Because in season 2, that's
and a werewolf.
Kind of all we got. Yeah. But now he's talking to people that aren't Willow, and he is kind of developing this very quirky, fun kind of...
He's becoming more part of the group than group adjacent.
Yes.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Again, they're being selfish in doing it, but the scene itself and the dialogue is pretty fun. It's really fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Willow seems to be the one who's really pushing for everything, I feel. And, I mean, we'll obviously get more into this, later on, but yeah, she's like, no, we gotta do this, because they don't want to talk about things. And, yeah, I mean, not asking Buffy or Joyce. Though, I mean, Joyce seems to not have a single problem with what's going on.
No. Ugh. And also, frankly, the way the party is originally planned, getting Buffy's friends together to, as a welcome back thing, that she invites Pat.
Yeah.
Is what the... I mean, unless it's she finds out that, there's going to be an entire band and 300 other people here, well, then I might as well invite Pat. I'm really unclear about whether Joyce has any idea what the party is going to turn into before it does.
Well, and I have major... I don't think she does. The band just shows up. Again, I think a lot of this, she's inviting Pat, all that stuff is... And Willow trying to plan to have this bigger party is them trying to, not be alone with Buffy. So if Pat is there, even at the small gathering... They don't, then it's there's company, and we're not going to talk about our issues in polite company. It's a buffer. I think Pat's always meant to be there as a buffer.
And also, Pat is not in on Buffy's secret, while everybody else in the Scooby Gang is. So if Pat's there...
They can't talk about Buffy being the Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's why Pat is there, even before the gathering gets large, is...
Yeah, but, I mean, very quickly the gathering gets large, and we see Devin coming in. And this is really random, but I really like that. I want to call him an extra, but he did have a couple of lines through it. But the guy who's I think this party is for a chick who just got out of rehab while he's smoking a joint, and then later on he's like, "Guys, got to do a shot."
Which
well, he's also the guy who answers the phone when Giles calls. So he definitely has he's definitely not an extra.
Okay,
yeah.
He's got enough stuff going on.
So this is not just Joyce having bad parenting skills. This is Joyce having bad adulting skills. She There's a joint. The kids are talking about doing shots. She's in the there. You can hear glasses breaking. You can hear things breaking throughout the house. And Joyce, who is an adult, is just sitting in the other room, letting underage kids drink and smoke marijuana in her home. That's just
she's just hiding in the kitchen with Pat and basically just ignoring
that's
everything.
Just truly bad adulting.
Most of the stuff that I have to talk about this is just Buffy is wandering through this party, just trying to connect with her friends, and
everyone's being a shit.
Yeah, and everybody's being a shit. Yeah,
I mean, it's my first note on the party is Xander and Cordy. When someone's talking directly to you, don't just make out.
Yeah, I did think Cordy was pretty funny there, but yeah.
Oh.
Xander's awful. Cordy's being Cordy. Some of the behavior in this episode with Cordy, I don't take any issue with Cordy, and I don't take any issue with Oz. Cordy's at a high school party where you make out with your boyfriend. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Xander and Willow are bad.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I think Xander and Willow in this episode, this feels almost like a precursor to, I want to say, Empty Places, the one where they kick Buffy out of her house. Yeah, because kind of everything is kind of the same, where they're all ganging up on Buffy. I want to get into it now. I want to get into the big argument that takes place in this episode, because it's the emotional crux of the episode, and kind of everything else is kind of bullshit. Buffy is she ends up overhearing that Joyce kind of wishes that she, never, came home, which, as somebody who has heard stuff from their mother in kind of a similar vein, that's fucking devastating when that happens. But I mean, like, parents are people and sometimes need to vent their frustrations, and they have, you know, bad toxic thoughts, and Buffy just happened to catch it at the wrong time. And so she decides to leave again because she has these just open, like, flayed nerves of emotion that she's not able to talk about. And so she's kind of like she needs to get out, and Willow just fucking attacks her.
Fucking Willow in this, as you know, I adore Willow, but here it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
She is just like, you know, Buffy's obviously having a bad time of it, and it's just like, well, the answer to that is to jump down her throat.
Yeah. Well, the thing that really bothers me about it is how much Willow turns it into, well, what about me? Like, what about all of the stuff that I've been through? Nothing that Willow's gone through over the summer, with the exception of fighting vampires, is particularly bad. She's in a serious relationship. She's studying witchcraft. All of this stuff is good things. And also, what about her supposedly, like, super close relationship with Xander? And she's like, I had nobody to talk to about all this stuff. You know Buffy has gone through something serious. You don't know what happened to Angel. Have you fucking asked? Did you say, hey, Buffy, I tried to do the spell to give Angel his soul back?
I mean, no one's even asked if Angel died. Like, they didn't even, I mean, I guess they assumed that she defeated Angel, but they don't know. They don't know unless they've talked about it off screen, right? Because the last time last time we saw them at the end of Becoming Part 2, they were talking about, well, maybe it all worked out and Angel's off with Buffy's off with Angel, or maybe she, so, like, They'll
address it briefly in Giles's subplot in the next episode. But, nobody has actually questioned what happened with Angel. When I first saw this episode, I really thought the kick his ass thing was going to come up.
I did too.
It would have made so much fucking sense.
So here's my counterpoint. They're teenagers. I'm not going to counterpoint to Joyce because she's going to be awful in a second and should fucking know better. Teenagers' brains are not as fully formed. They have impulse control issues. They have a problem coming out with their emotions. They have, in terms of developmental stages, they're just not quite there. And so a lot of times teenagers, and adults too, but a lot of times teenagers personalize everything. That's what you're doing. Your problems are always the biggest problems. Other people's, you know what I mean? It's like, how does your problem relate to my problem? How does your problem make me feel about myself? Not how do you need help with your problem? It's always like, how are actions affecting me? Not how are, and that's just how a lot of teenagers think.
I guess I did being a teenager wrong then. Because I was not this much of a dick.
Yeah, but you're never this much of a dick ever, David. That's like I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to argue with it, but like, you're like kind of the exception to rules about like, you're just a cool dude. So, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, like, there are some things where it's like, okay, they're teenagers, but Xander fucking saying that most people don't hop a Greyhound over boy trouble. It's like, there are people have died. People that you supposedly cared about were brutally murdered and put in other people you care about beds. Like, things were fucking bad. Like, she did not just hop a Greyhound over boy trouble.
Okay, Xander is the worst. I'm not going to give him a pass. I guess I'm pointing out that conversation with Buffy and Willow, where Willow attacks her but then backs off, and they actually have a little bit of talking back and forth before Willow is stupid again. But like, at least in that moment, I can see that Willow's big problems of having a boyfriend and needing somebody to talk to is going to take over because she just isn't mature enough to process that. Xander's a dick. But though that's just my counterpoint. It's not like you totally disagree with me, but counterpoint to that. Yeah.
Just for me, like, it's so clear how much trauma Buffy is going through in this episode, and nobody's fucking respecting it. Everybody's taking the moral high ground over, you ran away, you quit.
Oh, and also, it's a party. The party is supposedly welcoming Buffy home and supposed to show, we're really happy to have you back. And everyone ignores her.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not like 100% defending. It's a counterpoint.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I take what you're saying, and yeah, I mean, obviously, you do have a point, but narratively, it's just like it's. I mean, at this point, honestly, in my notes, I have like there's like we've reached the point in the episode where we can absolutely use the term
Oh,
ham
for sure.
fisted.
And also,
with what the whole making Buffy feel like crap.
A counterpoint to my counterpoint is that the writers, I'm not sure whose side the writers are on.
I feel based on the end of the episode that we were supposed to think that Buffy was
right.
wrong.
I know, and that it's not. I mean, Buffy, being a teenager too, is not talking about that trauma. She's not ready to go there. She's got undiagnosed PTSD, like all that myriad of things. But we'll talk about it at the end of the episode. But yeah, in my mind, and you know I'm a Buffy defender always, but like Buffy's in the right. She's just not ready to say things yet. I think everybody else is a piece of shit, regardless of my counterpoint.
The only person who's not a piece of shit in this is Giles, because he wasn't there.
Well, and also he's not laying guilt trips. He's not making big proclamations. He's just sitting and back and waiting and not expressing and making all feelings about him until he knows that Buffy's ready. So his approach is way different.
But he finally finds that goddamn page where, like, that mask was on, like, big as life, just, like, right there.
That was my question. It's like, did he go back to look at the same book again?
I guess
or does he have
did.
lots of books on Nigerian art?
And so he, figures out what's going on, and he goes off, and he gets attacked by zombies, and...
As you do.
And the best bit, him hot wiring the car.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me find the exact words. Do you like my mask?
Yeah,
Is it pretty? It praises the dead.
Yes, the dead Americans.
I just the way Tony says it. Do you like my mask? Is it pretty?
Okay, both parts are great in different ways, because sarcastic making fun of Joyce Giles is awesome.
Hot wiring the car.
Hot wiring a car ripper.
I mean, of course he knows how to hot wire the car.
That scene was cut out in England for imitatable behavior.
Ooh.
There's quite a bit cut out of the UK broadcast of some of these. Actually, I remember people online talking about, I don't remember that scene, and it was when they were getting it months later on Sky or whatever.
But yeah, so Giles hotwires the car and is heading over to Buffy's, and we go back to the argument, and Cordelia and Oz, like I said, or like we've all said, that they're not, like, really, we don't blame them for anything, and they're the only ones who are actually doing anything constructive during this argument. Because Oz is trying to act as, like an arbiter, and Cordelia's like, let's look at things from Buffy's point of view. I mean, she does it in her Cordelia way, but she's trying.
And Buffy does snap at her, but I almost don't blame Buffy. It's a heat of the moment thing, but yeah, Cordy's not.
And also at this point, Buffy is just like, I mean, basically everyone's been attacking her.
She's melting down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is one other person who's not horrible.
Jonathan?
Yes. It's like, just dip.
I know. I do love. My note says Jonathan.
Yeah, there are two bits with Jonathan that I love, and that's Jonathan with the dip, and in the background once the zombies do attack. So you see him holding on to one of the band members' guitars, and he's using it like a bludgeon. And the guitar is almost as big as he is.
The other thing I like, and it totally drops the plot, just for a moment, when the fight starts, Devin is helping too. Devin is keeping a cool head, and he gets a zombie out the door. I thought it was just a nice little... Now they all run upstairs without thinking about Devin, obviously, but...
I have a theory, and it's not that it's bunnies. That Devin actually knows more about the supernatural than is ever given away on the show. Because I think Oz probably told him that he was a werewolf, because, I mean, otherwise Dingoes Ate My Baby
on the full moon, that...
Yeah.
Good theory. I like it.
I think, like, Devin just, like, has no interest in, like, fighting evil, but, like, I think he knows enough.
No, for sure.
So.
And then him and Oz are going to live together later, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Oz definitely. Yeah. And Oz is so, like, I'm not going to say blunt because he's not necessarily blunt, but he's on it. You know, he'd be like, so Devin, here's the thing. I'm a werewolf.
Honest.
So I can't play any club dates. And he's like, huh, a werewolf?
Yeah.
And I expected Devin to be stoned during this conversation. I don't know. Now I'm just...
He'd probably be like...
making up a story.
He's like, that's kind of hot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Werewolf. Tell me more about that. Like, all right, so...
Chicks might be into that.
Chicks might be into that. Oh, that sucks, man. Full moon? Okay, I guess you can't play on the full moon. Cool. See you later.
Speaking of Oz, one thing I noticed when Oz and Cordelia run off together, I'm kind of sorry they never built up a Cordelia and Oz friendship.
Same thing for me. I noticed the exact same thing, and I was like, oh, okay.
Like, it would have made so much sense, because they kind of hung around in the same social circles before they got involved with the Scooby Gang.
Yep.
And there's not the same baggage with the We Hate Cordelia Club and everything.
Mm-hmm. And although they're part of the gang at this point, they both they fit the same, they're in the same positions in the gang. They're sort of the significant others of more primary members of the gang.
Yeah, it's like later on in seasons 5 and 6, you'll get a friendship between Tara and Anya. That's kind of what they should have done with Cordelia
and it's just a little
Oz.
subtle because, you know, Tara and Anya don't have tons of scenes together, but it's just sort of woven in there in the background. But you know that they're friends. You know that they get along. They address each other. And yeah, that would be kind of nice. You know, I do love the minute the fight starts, the team comes together and starts, you go there, because they know. I mean, obviously, it's a very ham-handed metaphor at this point.
Yeah, it's nice to see them all fighting, but honestly, once, like, the fighting starts, it's like, this episode is really anticlimactic, and it's like, it's a fight, it happens, demon dies.
Yeah, it happens. The other relationship I love, and they do pepper it in, and it's in this episode, is Giles and Cordy. Giles and Cordy, even there's one or two lines here and there that they have in episodes where she's just trying to be helpful and he's just like, oh my God, Cordy. But is it like I love Giles and Cordy interactions, and we get more of those, again, peppered through the seasons that she's around, and I just always enjoy their comedy vibe because they have just a great comedy vibe.
Yeah, and so the fight happens and it's very fighty, and Buffy's very smart and is able to figure out how to take out Demon Pat. And it ends with Oz's "never mind," which is cute.
Yeah. I have a question, though. Why do the zombies kill Pat? They don't seem to be killing anyone else. And theoretically, their whole motivation is to get to the mask, not to attack people.
They snapped the guy's joint, and they're the guy that got on the phone and that we were talking about, that, like, elevated extra guy. They came in and snapped his neck. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess I didn't know. I guess the reason I noticed Pat is because we spend more time with her being dead.
I think
and
they
it's
were
Pat.
being violent. Yeah. They're trying to swell their numbers. So, but yeah, the fight happens, and then we get Giles and Snyder, which is
such a small scene, but
one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, that's a great scene.
It's so small, and I've got some like lusty things to say, but at the same time, it's also two really good, experienced actors in a scene together, and even though it's small, it's you know, Armin and Tony are great at what they do and so experienced at what they do that they're able to just, you know. And then there's Ripper Face. He makes Ripper Face. Yes. I love Ripper Face. I even put in my notes, I needed a minute here.
Calm down, Andie.
You discuss the rest of the scene. I'll say anything about Ripper Face.
Well, I mean, I think that's you've basically covered it all. They're both so good in this scene. It's really short. It's dense. Like, we get that Giles is not going to put up with any bullshit from Snyder. Giles, it seems like he realizes that there's something wrong with Sunnydale, with the government. So he's like, screw it. I'm going to go over your heads.
And he doesn't, that little Ripper Face moment, that's the only time he uses violence or the threat of violence against Snyder. The rest of it all is very logical and very like, okay, here are the other things. You can't do this. Here's the laws. And, you know, it's very reasonable. And then that little...
But then I'll beat the shit out of you.
Like, I am not the gentle British librarian you think I am, dude.
No, I mean, the great thing is this scene, unlike a lot of the rest of this episode, is not at all overwritten and kind of blunt. It's just really, the scene's well written. It doesn't do more or less than it needs to do. And it has two great actors, basically.
Yeah.
Just
and
doing it.
As we said, Giles is the only one in this episode that's not awful. You know what I mean? It shows Giles is more logical, but like infinitely more loving way of dealing with these problems. Again, I feel awkwardness from Giles. There's the scene in the kitchen, you know, and they're all talking to Buffy, but I'm not feeling in this episode a holding back of Giles. I mean, he's holding back, but he's not being passive aggressive like Xander and Willow and trying to like brush the problem aside. He's just, or make the problem about himself and what his feelings are. He's just sort of doing his Giles thing and doing it well and doing it the way, you know. Yeah. So that.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, awesome scene. And then we get the final scene, which is Buffy and Willow at the espresso pump. And now with season 3, we're getting into Buffy and its use of magic. And I did a couple of pagan blessings.
I did a couple of pagan blessings, and then she said she did something else, and she said, I don't know, it was like, feel like being pulled apart inside. It's a literal quote when she talks about trying to summon something, and I'm like, wow, that is not, wow.
And she also says, it's like a drug. Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know, it's just like the thing about the doing a couple of pagan blessings, it just, do I want to say cultural appropriation?
Huh, really?
I feel like almost like that's kind of, because
it's not her actual religion.
It's like, it's not like it's anything, she's doing it
and
because
it's cool,
it's
not because she's actually a practitioner of, I mean, and on this show, you're going to get the misuse of a religious name for magic, but.
Yeah. And later on, when she actually does meet up with the Wicca group, she makes fun of them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
For, actually practicing Wicca. So, yeah. I mean, I know that shooty IB magic is going to fucking happen.
Yeah, you're right, Emcee. That does feel right. And knowing the amount of pagans I know, I feel like, because my church has its own pagan group, because that's part of, like, do your own thing Unitarianism. It is like, yeah, you're right. I don't, if I was a modern day pagan, I would be like, kind of like, really? That's not what we do, dude. Anyway.
I think that's a writer problem, not a character problem.
And it's going to be a writer problem through this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're going to misuse pagan.
I would just prefer if we didn't use terms like pagan or Wicca, or if we took more like a Harry Potter approach to it, where it's like they're witches and they're wizards, and it's not kind of, we're separating the everything from, we're separating the two. We have the shooty IB magic, and then we have actual, like, what things
and,
are.
I mean, just in terms of the language we're going to use probably in the program, that's a good idea to just talk about witches and things like that.
Yeah. But, yeah, I did notice it, and I don't like the ending a little bit where Willow is basically lambasting Buffy in, like, a quote-unquote cute way.
Buffy's line is, they're teasing, and Buffy says her line is, oh, you're right, I'm the bad. They've made her, she's internalizing all this stuff. I mean, I know she's not being forthcoming with what really happened, but she's taking it in and saying, you're right, I was the bad one. I did something wrong. I did something... Sarah breaks my heart in this episode. Yeah. That scene where she starts crying also in the party is... And Buffy breaks my heart. And Buffy taking this on herself and not actually being really supported by the people that claim to be her team, except for Giles. And even then, we're going to have some problems with him this season. Yep. It breaks my heart, and it feels like the writers think Buffy is wrong when Buffy is...
I'm not sure if they think she's wrong.
No, I don't think wrong. I just think, part of this episode, I think you said it, Emcee, that it feels like the writers are on the gang side and not Buffy's side.
I mean, as far as Buffy, like, internalizing this and taking on the being the bad guy, I see that as very, very character
It is. It just breaks my heart.
I mean, No, I mean it's upsetting, but it's not. I don't know that the writers are taking that position. I think they may be just writing it in a way that is kind of real for this character.
Yeah,
is
Fair
that this
point.
is what she would do.
I think I just probably, from my background in social services and social work, my thing is always like gonna look at this piece of what. But yeah, no, in terms of the writing and the arc, and I think you're right. It's just like I get so upset when Buffy's upset. Is probably what it is.
Oh, I totally get that. Yeah, it's just we bash the writers enough. I wanted to give them
for sure
a little bit of leeway here.
It seems like they dropped the ball because of my viewpoint on who's in the right and everything. Because the whole episode, the problem is that nobody's talking to each other about what happened over the summer. But at the end, we don't see anybody talking about what happened to Buffy over the summer.
We have a fight, and
that's
they all
true.
fight well together again, and that gets them over it. They don't, and they...
Well, essentially, what happens is Willow gets what she wanted, which was someone to talk to about all the stuff that's been happening to her, but Buffy still can't talk about what happened to her. Yeah. And what happened to her is, let's face it, a little more significant.
Oh, girl, you're amazing. I know you're not a girl, but you know what I meant. Like, that's just like,
that's fine. I can be a girl for now. Yeah.
Totally valid point. Like, totally not even valid. Like, that's a really great point about how Willow works, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think what would have been great is if they had taken this tack at the end of this episode and then that had somewhere paid off. Like, Buffy would have come back and said, we always, I mean, I get that you needed this to talk about this stuff, and I'm glad we talked about it. But, I have needs too, and you're all being jerks about it.
Well, this is why I think that the thing about Angel should have come out in this episode. So that things could have been shifted to Buffy's actually going through a lot of shit. And you guys are not actually supporting her on it. But whatever. I think, just, to start with the final thoughts on this episode. I don't mind this episode, but so much of what happens with the conflict with the gang does kind of poison the well a little bit, because I so strongly disagree with the way the writers portrayed who was in the right, because it doesn't have to be that anybody is in the right. They could have both been wrong, or not wrong, but had their sides that are just not meshing. But they so strongly said that the gang is right that it just bothered
me too.
So.
I will point out my final thoughts that I wrote this in my notes somewhere, that much like in Anne, our last episode, the monster of the week is really inconsequential. I mean, like, it doesn't really matter because it's more about the emotional journey. So, I mean, I thought that was an interesting, like, seeing that these first two episodes, I mean, obviously Ken the demon was way cooler and better than, like, just zombies, but
yeah.
And Buffy's pink dress is so ill-fitting, I wanted to scream at it. Like, it's just not, it's bad. So anyway, yeah, final thought. It's not the best episode. I don't mind it, but it makes me very emotionally angsty for Buffy.
Yeah, the thing I was like, and I haven't thought this through fully, but to me it's kind of like a mirror image of when she was bad. It's got the Buffy returning and her having issues to work out, and instead of this time her ignoring her issues and doing all kinds of crap like she did when she was bad and having to spank her inner moppet, here it's the opposite. It's like everyone else kind of treating the situation poorly.
Yeah.
So, trivia for this episode, it just had that there were 3 songs performed by Dingoes Ate My Baby, aka 4-Star Mary, and it was Nevermind, Sway, and Pain. And that's about it for Dead Man's Party. So, next week we'll be reviewing Faith, Hope, and Trick. So until then, grr, arg.
Grr, arg.
Grr, arg.
We We'd like to thank everyone who downloaded the podcast, and an extra special thanks to everyone who shared, liked, and subscribed on social media. So we actually had a comment this week on the episode Anne. So we heard from our listener, Michelle. She said, "Great review of Anne, also one of my fave season openers. I think there's an interview with Julia Lee on Buffering the Vampire Slayer podcast where she said she kind of gave up acting when she had her daughter, but just this year her daughter finally reached the age and Julia showed her Buffy the show, and they watched it together. Just thought that makes me go, duh, full circle." So thank you, Michelle, for...
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's a great comment and a new fact that none of us knew. So,
Yeah.
like, I always love to know new things and why Julia Lee left the business. It's not an easy business. Yeah, so thank you for writing.
Yeah, and it's always nice to hear that if someone is leaving the business, they're leaving for a good reason. Or a positive reason.
It's also really nice to know that our listeners actually are listening to the podcast and can kind of interact with us and let us know things we didn't know before. So thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from people.
And of course, shout out to Buffering the Vampire Slayer, one of our fellow podcasts, though I don't think they really need the shout out because Buffering the Vampire Slayer is quite popular.
Huge podcast.
I love knowing that Julia left acting for her own reasons and that she's now showing the show to her daughter. I mean, that's always really sweet when kids are old enough to enjoy their parents' work. And so, yes, thank you for that message. So we'd love to hear more questions and comments from our listeners. You can contact us on our website, returntothehellmouth.com, on YouTube and Tumblr and Facebook at Return to the Hellmouth, on Twitter at HellmouthReturn, or on email at returntothehellmouth@gmail.com. And we'll read those comments and discuss them here on the show. So we'll be back next week with Faith, Hope, and Trick.
Grr, arg.